Welcome in, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating perspective on wealth. And I think this might be especially interesting for you because we're looking at it a little differently. We're going beyond the typical how to get rich advice and exploring how to actually experience wealth in a whole new way. The inspiration for this deep dive comes from Elizabeth Husserl's work, especially her book, The Power of Enough. And her interview on the About That Wallet podcast just really blew me away. She has such a unique approach.
Oh, yeah, she really does. I think what resonates with me the most is how Husserl encourages us to kind of shift our whole mindset around money. Instead of constantly chasing more, she focuses on cultivating a sense of enough and how powerful that can be.
Absolutely. And, it's not about settling or denying ourselves things. It's more about recognizing that true wealth isn't just about the numbers in our bank account. One of the things that really stood out to me was her idea of the money story. She says we all have this narrative running in the background, shaped by our earliest experiences with money.
Oh, that's so true. And it's incredible how those early experiences, often from childhood, can have such a lasting impact on our financial habits, even decades later,
Yeah.
It's like we're carrying around this invisible financial blueprint that influences everything from our spending habits to our investment decisions.
Right, like how much of our current relationship with money is really ours and how much is actually coming from our family history or our cultural background.
Yeah.
It really makes you think. Husserl talks about, for example, how she used to spend her entire allowance on candy as a kid.
Oh,
And that actually taught her about budgeting and making choices from a very young age.
wow. That's a great example of how these early money lessons can be so powerful. And it makes me wonder about you, actually. What are some of your earliest memories related to money?
That's a good question. Let me think. I remember being really fascinated by the stock market as a teenager. I would spend hours poring over the financial news, tracking stock prices. I think it gave me a sense of possibility, that anyone could build wealth through investing. But looking back, it probably also instilled a bit of overconfidence in my ability to predict the market.
It's interesting how those early experiences can have both positive and potentially challenging aspects to them. And that's where I think Husserl's work gets really interesting, because she doesn't stop at just analyzing those money stories. She actually encourages us to have a conversation with money.
I'll be honest, when I first heard that, I was a little skeptical. Like, am I really supposed to sit down and talk to my money? But then I heard how she uses this technique, inspired by Gestalt therapy, to actually engage in a dialogue with her finances. She describes, for instance, sitting down and having a conversation with her credit card debt, which led to some pretty profound realizations about her relationship with money.
It might sound a little unconventional, but there's something really powerful in actually giving a voice to those underlying emotions we often project onto money. It can help us uncover those hidden fears and those limiting beliefs that might be holding us back. Would you be open to trying something like that? Maybe not a full-blown therapy session, but even just journaling, reflecting on your feelings about your money, as if it were a separate entity.
I think I would be willing to give that a shot. After all, that's what this deep dive is all about, right? Exploring new ways of experiencing wealth, and maybe even getting a little bit uncomfortable along the way. One thing I find fascinating is how Husserl suggests that this talking to money exercise can help us break free from something she calls the abundance scarcity loop.
Oh, yeah. That constant cycle of striving for more, but never quite feeling like we have enough. It's such a common trap, and it can be incredibly draining.
It's like running on a treadmill, always moving but going nowhere. Husserl's point, I think, is that true wealth is not just about accumulating money. It's about fulfilling a wider spectrum of human needs.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have needs beyond just the financial ones, like connection, purpose, creativity. And often when we hyper-focus on money, we neglect those other areas of our lives, which can lead to a sense of emptiness.
I've definitely been there, focused so much on hitting those financial targets that I let other things slide a bit. Have you ever experienced that, where the pursuit of financial success came at the expense of other important parts of your life?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a really common experience, especially in a society that often equates net worth with self-worth. But what if true wealth lies in finding that balance between nurturing all aspects of ourselves, not just the financial ones?
That's such a great point. I'm really curious to dig deeper into how Husserl suggests we find that balance. What are those specific steps we can take to break free from that scarcity loop and start experiencing a more holistic sense of wealth?
Well, one of the key things Husserl emphasizes is shifting our perspective on money. Instead of seeing it as a source of stress or a measure of our worth, she suggests we view it as a companion, a guide that can help us achieve our goals.
I love that analogy. It's like having a personal trainer for our finances.
Exactly. And just like a good trainer, money can push us outside of our comfort zone. It can challenge us to grow and help us achieve things we never thought possible. But it's important to remember that money, like any good trainer, it has its limits. It can't solve every problem, and it can't buy us happiness or true fulfillment.
So how do we actually cultivate this money as a companion mindset? How do we move away from feeling controlled by money and instead see it as a partner in our journey towards a more fulfilling life?
That's a great question, and one that we'll definitely explore further as we delve deeper into Husserl's work. But for now, I want you to consider this. If you were to greet money each day as a welcomed guest, rather than a source of anxiety or stress, how might that change your interactions with it?
It's like inviting money to the table as an equal partner, instead of viewing it as this demanding boss or a scarce resource that we have to constantly fight for. I'm really intrigued to see where this idea leads us.
It really is about shifting that perspective, isn't it? And thinking about boundaries with this money partner. Not just accepting whatever comes our way, but making conscious choices that actually align with our goals and our values.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's like setting some ground rules, right, for how we interact with money. But how do we actually do that? Especially when we have these ingrained habits and beliefs that sometimes seem to work against us.
Well, it goes back to that idea of the money story we were discussing earlier. Husserl suggests we can actually rewrite those stories, even if they've been passed down to us, through generations even.
That sounds incredibly empowering, but honestly, also a little daunting.
Yeah.
Is it really possible to change those deeply ingrained beliefs and patterns?
It takes effort for sure, but I do believe it's possible. Think about it this way. Just because our family history might be marked by a certain way of relating to money, like scarcity or overspending, doesn't mean we're destined to repeat those patterns. We have the power to choose a different path.
So how do we begin to rewrite those stories? Do we just sit down with a pen and paper and imagine a new narrative?
That could be one way to approach it, but Husserl actually suggests something a bit more introspective. She encourages us to really examine those inherited beliefs and ask ourselves, is this belief still serving me? Does it align with the values I hold and the vision I have for my life?
That's a really powerful question. It makes me think of that story Husserl tells about her grandfather, a Holocaust survivor who achieved incredible financial success, but could never truly shake that deep-seated sense of scarcity. It makes you wonder how much of our financial DNA is actually influenced by generational experiences like that.
Right. It's fascinating, isn't it? It's like those past experiences, even if they happened generations ago, become encoded in our financial DNA, influencing how we view money, how we earn it, how we spend it, even how we feel about it on a gut level.
So if we identify a belief that's no longer serving us, like that fear of scarcity or a tendency to overspend, how do we actually go about changing it?
Well, Husserl emphasizes awareness. Becoming truly aware of those patterns and then consciously choosing to shift our thinking. It's about replacing those old limiting beliefs with new, empowering ones.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like in practice?
Sure. Let's imagine someone who grew up in a household where money was always tight. There was a constant fear of not having enough. And as an adult, even if they're now financially secure, they might find that they're still clinging to that scarcity mindset.
Oh, I can totally relate to that. It's like those early experiences create a kind of default setting in our brains.
Yeah, exactly. But the good news is, by becoming aware of that default setting, you can start to challenge it. So instead of dwelling on what you lack, you can make a conscious choice to focus on what you have. You can practice gratitude for the abundance that already exists, even if it's not always in the form of money.
So it's about making that shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, even if our past experiences might make that feel like a real uphill battle at first.
Exactly. And remember, it's a process. It's not about achieving some perfect state of abundance overnight. It's about those small, consistent steps, day by day, to cultivate a more positive relationship with money.
Which brings us back to that idea of money as a companion. If we're trying to rewrite these money stories and shift our mindset, how do we start working with money instead of feeling like we're constantly at war with it? Husserl talked about money as a personal trainer, right?
She did. And that's where things get really practical. Just like a personal trainer helps us set those fitness goals and create a plan to achieve them. Money can be that guide to help us reach our financial goals.
I love that analogy. It's so true. We wouldn't just show up at the gym and start randomly lifting weights. We'd have a plan, a strategy, and we'd work with our trainer to stay on track. So how do we apply that same kind of thinking to money?
Well, just like with fitness, it starts with setting clear goals. What do you want to achieve with your finances? Are you saving for a down payment on a house, paying off debt, investing for retirement?
Having those specific goals in mind makes a huge difference. I've definitely noticed that when I have a clear financial goal, I'm much more motivated and focused with my money.
Absolutely. And once you have those goals in place, you can start to create a plan, like your financial workout routine. This might involve creating a budget, tracking your spending, or maybe exploring different investment options. And just like a trainer might adjust our workout routine as we progress, we need to regularly check in with our finances and make adjustments as needed.
It's like having that ongoing feedback loop, right? But what about those times when we feel like we're veering off track, slipping back into old habits or feeling overwhelmed by our finances? Where does money as a companion fit into those situations?
That's where that idea of open communication becomes so crucial. Remember, we're treating money as a partner, and any good partnership is built on trust and honest communication. So if you're feeling stressed about money, don't just brush those feelings under the rug. Talk to your money partner.
I have to admit, that sounds a little strange at first. Like, how do you actually have a conversation with money?
It might feel awkward initially, but trust me, it can be incredibly helpful. You could try journaling about your financial concerns, or even just speaking out loud to yourself about your money goals and challenges. The important thing is to bring those feelings to the surface and acknowledge them.
It's about becoming more conscious and intentional with our finances, not ignoring our emotions or pretending everything is fine, but actually acknowledging those feelings and working with money to find solutions.
Exactly. And remember, just like a good trainer motivates us to push ourselves and reach our full potential, money, when viewed as a companion, can also inspire us to grow and achieve that true financial well-being.
It's not just about crunching numbers and creating spreadsheets. It's about cultivating a relationship with money that feels supportive, empowering, and maybe even, dare I say, enjoyable.
Absolutely. And you know that enjoyment can come from celebrating those financial wins, no matter how small they might seem. Did you manage to stick to your budget this month? Awesome. Did you pay off a credit card? That's fantastic. Celebrate those little victories. They deserve to be acknowledged, and they help us build momentum.
That's such a good point. It's easy to get caught up in what we haven't accomplished yet. But celebrating those small wins, it helps us stay motivated and keeps us moving towards those bigger financial goals.
It does. And remember, money, just like a good trainer, can help us push past our comfort zones, achieve things we might not have thought possible. Maybe it encourages you to try a new investment strategy, or start a side hustle, or even negotiate a raise. But it's also crucial to remember that money isn't the answer to everything. It's a tool, a companion, but not the ultimate source of happiness or fulfillment.
So it's about finding that balance, right, between using money's power as a tool and a guide, but also recognizing its limitations.
Exactly. And that balance will look different for everyone. It's about figuring out what works for you, for your values and your unique circumstances.
This conversation is really challenging me to think about money in a completely different light. It's not just about the numbers. It's about the relationship we have with it, the stories we tell ourselves about it, and the choices we make in partnership with it.
And that's really the essence of what Husserl is trying to convey. We have more agency, more power in our financial lives than we often give ourselves credit for. We don't have to be victims of circumstance or slaves to those past experiences. We can choose to rewrite those money stories, cultivate a more positive relationship with money, and create a financial reality that truly supports our dreams.
I love that. But I also know how overwhelming and isolating those financial challenges can feel sometimes. We might feel ashamed or embarrassed to even talk about our money struggles, even with those closest to us.
You're absolutely right. It can feel very isolating. And that's precisely why it's so important to remember. We're not alone in this. Countless people face similar challenges, and there's a wealth of support available if we're willing to reach out.
So where can we turn for help if we're feeling stuck or overwhelmed?
Well, there are amazing financial advisors who can provide guidance, help us create a solid plan, manage investments, and navigate those complex financial decisions. There are therapists who specialize in money-related anxiety, helping people develop healthier financial habits. And there's an abundance of books, podcasts, online communities, offering valuable insights and practical advice.
So it's okay to ask for help, whether it's from a professional,
Hmm.
a trusted friend, or even tapping into that collective wisdom through books and online communities.
Exactly. Seeking guidance and support is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it often takes a lot of strength and self-awareness to do so. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about exploring what works for you and your unique situation.
This conversation has been eye-opening, really. I'm already seeing how I can apply these ideas to my own life. As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, is there anything else you'd like to highlight before we move on to the final part?
Yes, there is one more crucial piece I want to touch upon. Husserl makes it very clear that financial well-being isn't just about reaching some distant goal. It's also about finding joy in the journey itself.
I love that. It's easy to get so fixated on those financial goals that we forget to appreciate where we are right now and acknowledge the progress we've already made.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to bring joy and gratitude into our financial lives, even when we're facing challenges or setbacks.
So how do we actually do that? How do we find joy in something that can often feel stressful and overwhelming?
It starts with a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing money as a source of anxiety, what if we started seeing it as a tool for creating experiences, building relationships, pursuing our passions?
I like that shift. Focusing on the possibilities that money can unlock, rather than the limitations it might seem to impose.
Precisely. It's about using money to enhance our lives, not letting it control us. And that might mean making choices that prioritize experiences over possessions, spending time with loved ones over working those long hours, or pursuing creative endeavors that light us up, even if they don't bring in a huge income.
It's about remembering that money is a means to an end, not the end in itself.
Exactly. And when we start to view money in that light, it can actually become a source of joy and fulfillment, rather than a constant burden of stress and worry.
This is really making me think differently about wealth. It's not just about the external stuff, the numbers, but about that internal experience of abundance and fulfillment. I'm excited to move on to the final part of our deep dive and explore what a truly fulfilling and abundant life can look like, beyond just the balance in our bank accounts. So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Money stories, reframing our relationship with money, treating it like a personal trainer. It's a lot to take in, but I keep coming back to this idea of what a fulfilling and abundant life really looks like, beyond just the financial aspect. What did Husserl have to say about that?
Well, she doesn't give us a one-size-fits-all answer, which I appreciate. Instead, she challenges us to define abundance for ourselves. It's about asking, what are the things that make you feel truly alive and content?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Sometimes we get so caught up in chasing financial success that we forget to even ask ourselves those questions. What truly matters? Is it spending time with family, pursuing creative passions, making a difference in the world?
I think that's a really important point. We can easily fall into that trap of thinking, if I just had X amount of money, then I'd be happy. But Husserl's argument is that real abundance comes from aligning our financial goals with our deepest values and aspirations. And those are unique to each of us.
Right. It's not about following some external formula. It's about figuring out what truly resonates with us as individuals. So if we understand our money story, rewrite those parts that aren't serving us and start seeing money as a tool to support those values. Then we can actually use it to build a life that feels fulfilling, regardless of how much we earn.
Exactly. Wealth is an experience, not just a number. It's about feeling whole and satisfied in all areas of your life.
Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were pursuing a financial goal that didn't actually align with what you truly valued?
Oh, definitely. There was a time when I was completely focused on climbing the corporate ladder. I thought reaching a certain position and salary would bring me happiness and security, but along the way, I realized I was sacrificing my health, my relationships, my creativity. It was a real wake-up call to reevaluate what really mattered to me and redefine what success meant on a personal level.
That's such a powerful story. It shows how easily we can get caught up in those external measures of success. Husserl encourages us to step back and ask, what brings ME joy? And it might be something simple, spending time in nature, volunteering, learning a new skill.
And it's about finding ways to incorporate those things into our lives, even if it means making some adjustments to our financial goals or our career paths. Maybe it means downsizing to free up more time, or taking a calculated risk to pursue a passion project.
That's what I find so empowering about this concept of enough. It's not about deprivation. It's about making conscious choices about what we want to prioritize, and then using money as a tool to support those choices.
And recognizing that those choices might change over time. What feels fulfilling at one stage of life might look different later on. The key is to stay connected to your values and be willing to adapt as needed.
I love that. It's not about finding the perfect formula. It's about being mindful and intentional. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think I'd go back to Husserl's words. It's never too late to start cultivating a healthier and more joyful relationship with money. It's a journey, not a destination. Be kind to yourself along the way. And remember, you have the power to create a life that feels truly abundant and meaningful to you.
That's such a great reminder. Financial well-being is within reach for all of us. It starts with awareness, curiosity, and that willingness to embark on this journey of self-discovery. So as you continue exploring your relationship with money, remember you're not alone. There's support out there. And you have the power to shape your financial reality in a way that supports your dreams and your values. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.